The wind carried ash across the dead valley like a funeral shroud woven from the bones of 1,000 forgotten battles. Gray skies pressed down on a world in forgotten color, where twisted metal forests grew from cracked earth. Jagged spires of rusted hulls and shattered artillery pierced in the haze like the ribs of some colossal beast long extinct. The air tasted of rust and regret, a metallic tang that coated the tongue and clung to the lungs, a reminder that breath itself was a borrowed luxury in this forsaken place. In the distance, skeletal cities clawed at the horizon, their skyscrapers reduced to blackened fingers accusing the heavens, monuments to a war no one had won, only endured until exhaustion claimed both victor and vanquished. And there, tied to the last living tree on this forsaken planet, hung a woman with skin the color of spring leaves, vibrant even beneath the grime of despair. Her head bowed beneath a wooden sign that read in 3 languages, English, Valkyrie script, and the ancient trade dialect of the neutral zones, punish for betraying her kind. The soldier who found her had been alone for 73 days, his mind a fractured ledger survival, where it stopped counting the dead weeks ago, their faces blurring into a single, accusing shadow. Lieutenant Cyrus Vane had been walking for 3 days through what used to be called the Meridian Wasteland, a name that now felt like a cruel joke etched into obsolete maps. His tactical suit was torn in multiple places, patched with salvaged fabric that didn't quite match. Strips of Valkyrie camouflage interwoven with human insulation foil, a patchwork testament to scavenging in a world where allegiance meant nothing and utility everything. The exo-frame on his left leg hissed with each labored step, a mechanical sigh compensating for an injury that should have killed him in the bombardment of Firebase Aaron. Shrapnel had torn through muscle and bone, but the frame held him upright, a cruel irony that kept him moving when oblivion would have been kinder. He'd been the only survivor of that inferno, the only human left in this sector, as far as his fractured scans could confirm. The war between humanity and the Valkyrie had ended 6 months ago, not with the thunder of victory or the silence of defeat, but with mutual exhaustion, a ceasefire born of depleted arsenals and shattered wills. Both sides had retreated to their core worlds, licking wounds and fortified bastions, leaving contested planets as graveyards where the echoes of plasma fire still lingered in the soil. Cyrus had missed the last evacuation shuttle, or perhaps he'd let it leave without him, standing on the pad with his rifle slung and his gaze fixed on the horizon, watching the thrusters ignite like false dawns. The distinction seemed meaningless now, a philosophical quibble in a life reduced to footfalls and ration counts. His boots crunched over irradiated glass, remnants of orbital strikes that had fused sand into brittle sheets. His scanner, a battered device clipped to his belt, beeped intermittently, picking up ghosts, faint energy signatures from long-dead machinery, the occasional scamper of mutated vermin that had adapted to poison where larger life had failed. The anomaly registered at 1,400 hours, a blip on his HUD that defied the monotony of death. Biological signature, non-human. Vital signs, weak but present, pulsing like a faint heartbeat in a corpse. He'd almost ignored it, dismissing it as a glitch or a trap. In his experience, the only things still alive out here are the kind that wanted you dead. Feral drones, bioengineered predators released in the war's final spasms, or worse, survivors driven mad by isolation. But something about the reading felt wrong, too stationary, too vulnerable, lacking the erratic movement of a hunter or the mechanical precision of a sentry. Against his better judgment, honed by years of paranoia, he altered course toward the coordinates, his exo-leg whining in protest as he crested a dune of ash. The tree appeared first as a dark line against a perpetual gray, a vertical anomaly in a landscape of horizontals. Then it resolved into something that made him stop and stare, his breath fogging the inside of his helmet. It was massive, ancient even by human standards, its trunk thicker than Shuttle Bay, bark blackened but intact, cracked like old leather yet holding firm. Its branches still held leaves, actual green leaves, vein and vibrant, rustling faintly in the toxic breeze. In this world of death, where biological weapons had salted the earth and radiation had sterilized the air, it stood like a defiant middle finger to entropy itself, a living rebuke to the apocalypse. And bound to it was her. Her skin was the green of new grass after rain, smooth and luminous, even beneath the ash that had settled on her shoulders like a shroud of snow on emerald fields. Long hair, the color of autumn rust, deep reds and burnt oranges, hung across her face in matted strands, obscuring features that promised both beauty and alien strangeness. She wore what looked like combat gear, straps and fabric in earth-tone camouflage, practical but fitted to physique that was unmistakably Valkyrie, taller than human average, limbs longer and more elegant, fingers that ended in subtle points designed for precision in zero-gravity repairs or the delicate triggering of neural implants. The ropes binding her to the tree were thick, professional, knotted with the expertise of soldiers who knew how to make suffering last. They bit into her wrists and ankles, crossing her torso in a cruel harness that pinned her upright. The sign hung from her neck, like a judgment passed by gods indifferent to mercy. Cyrus approached slowly, weapon raised, a pulse rifle scavenged from a fallen comrade, its charge indicator flickering at half capacity. He scanned for traps or ambush, thermal sweeps, motion detectors, even old-fashioned tripwires. Nothing stirred but the wind, the ash, and the sound of his own breathing inside his helmet, amplified into a rhythmic roar. When he was 10 meters away, she lifted her head with obvious effort, the movement costing her visibly as muscles trembled under the strain. Her eyes were large, golden, with vertical pupils that contracted sharply as they focused on him, adapting to the dim light like a predator's or a prey's final defiance. Her lips were cracked, bleeding something that wasn't quite red, a viscous amber fluid that spoke of alien biochemistry. "Water," she said in perfect English, her voice like sand over stone, rough yet resonant, carrying an accent that hinted at worlds of crystalline canyons and bioluminescent seas. Cyrus kept his weapon trained on her center mass, but reached for his canteen with his free hand, the motion deliberate, non-threatening. He'd heard stories about Valkyrie deception, their ability to manipulate human psychology with pheromones that induce trust or vocal harmonics that bypass rational thought, turning enemies into unwitting allies. Propaganda vids in the war's early days, designed to instill fear. But he'd also seen what betrayal looked like on his own side. Courts-martial for hesitation, executions for empathy, and the sign around her neck told a story that transcended species boundaries, a universal language of punishment for crime of humanity. "How long have you been here?" he asked carefully, his voice modulated through the helmet speaker, flat and professional. 3 days, maybe 4, she rasped, her golden eyes never wavering. "Time moves strangely when you're dying. It stretches, then snaps." He took another step closer, studying her bonds with a tactical eye. The ropes were cutting into her skin, leaving dark marks that wept a clear fluid, sap-like and glistening. Her breathing was shallow, labored, each inhale a battle against dehydration and exposure. Whatever she'd done to earn this punishment, her own people had meant for it to be permanent and painful, a slow crucifixion under alien skies. "Why should I help you?" The question hung in the air, practical and cold, born of survival instincts sharpened to a razor's edge. She almost smiled at that, a bitter twist of her mouth that revealed teeth slightly too sharp to be human. Canines elongate for tearing into the tough fibers of Valkyrie flora, or in war, into enemy flesh. "You shouldn't. I'm a traitor. Apparently, my people made that very clear." She paused, her eyes never leaving his visor, as if peering through the tint to the man beneath. "But you're going to anyway, aren't you? Because you're alone out here, and you remember what it felt like when they left you behind." Cyrus felt something cold settle in his chest, a frost that had nothing to do with the wasteland chill. She shouldn't have known that. Couldn't have known that the shuttle's departure, the way he'd stood there as engines roared, choosing solitude over retreat. "How did you—" "I can smell it on you," she interrupted weakly, her voice gaining a faint edge of amusement despite the pain. "Abandonment has a scent. Believe me, I know it well. It's sharp, like ozone before a storm, mixed with the bitterness of unspoken regrets." The air between them crackled with unspoken understanding, a tension that was neither hostile nor friendly, but something deeper, a recognition of shared fractures in the soul. 2 soldiers, 2 outcasts, 2 people who had chosen compassion in a universe that punished kindness with death sentences and lonely fates. He holstered his weapon with deliberate slowness, the click echoing like a decision made irreversible. "My name is Cyrus," he said, removing his helmet for the first time in days. letting the toxic air bite at his skin. His face was gaunt, stubbled, eyes hollow from malnutrition and sleepless nights. "Lisa," she whispered. The name fluid on her tongue. "Lieutenant Lisa, former lieutenant, I suppose. Former is something we have in common." He pulled out his vibroblade, a tool designed for cutting through ship hulls and emergency breaches, its edge humming with ultrasonic vibrations. He pressed it against the first rope, the fibers separating with a high-pitched whine that set his teeth on edge. Lisa gasped as circulation returned in painful waves, her body sagging forward against the remaining bonds. He caught her instinctively, his combat training compensating for her unexpected weight. Lighter than a human despite her height, her bones hollow like a bird's, evolved for worlds with lower gravity. "Thank you," she breathed against his shoulder, her warmth seeping through his suit, a startling contrast to the cold desolation. "Don't thank me yet," he muttered, working on the next rope. "We're both stranded on a dead world with limited supplies and no extraction coming. I might have just prolonged your suffering." "Still better than the alternative," she replied, her voice steadier now, laced with a dark humor that mirrored his own. He worked methodically through the remaining ropes, each one leaving deeper marks on her green skin, welts that began to bruise in shades of deep indigo. When the last binding fell away with a thud to the ash, she collapsed completely, and he lowered her gently to the ground, cradling her head to prevent injury on the jagged rocks hidden beneath the dust. "Why did they do this to you?" he asked, offering her water from his canteen, the precious liquid glinting in the dim light. She drank desperately, water spilling down her chin in rivulets that carved clean paths through the grime, before answering with visible effort, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "I saved human lives. 17 civilians hiding in the ruins of Outpost Kepler. 7. My commander ordered their execution. Standard protocol for enemy noncombatants in occupied zones. Eliminate potential intelligence leaks. Deny resources to the foe." She met his eyes with defiance still burning there, golden irises fierce. "I refused the order. Got 6 of them to the neutral zone before my own unit. Hunted me down. The other 11. They made me watch as they killed them slowly, methodically, so I would understand the price of mercy in wartime. Lasers on low power, burns that cauterized even as they inflicted agony." Cyrus felt his jaw clench involuntarily, muscles twitching under scarred skin. He'd heard similar stories from his own side. Soldiers punished for showing compassion, for seeing the enemy as something other than targets to be eliminated in crosshairs. War had a way of making cruelty mandatory and kindness criminal, a machine that ground down the soul until only obedience remained. "The 6 who escaped," he said quietly, capping the canteen. "Did they make it?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice cracking for the first time. "I hope so. I have to hope so, because that hope is all I have left to hold on to. Without it, this," she gestured weakly at the wasteland, "wins." But while the valley watched in silence, indifferent and eternal, the woman's eyes shimmered faintly with bioluminescence, a soft glow emanating from her pupils, as if her body was burning through its last reserves of energy, displaying the truth of what the tree had done to save her. It wasn't just a plant. It was a guardian, its roots delving into secrets older than the war that had destroyed this world, drawing from reserves hidden deep beneath the poison crust. The ruins of an old way station stood 3 kilometers northeast, partially intact, its dome cracked but offering shelter from the ash storms that swept through the valley each night, like vengeful spirits. Cyrus fashioned a makeshift stretcher from salvage cables and his own equipment webbing, securing Lisa as gently as combat training allowed, straps padded with torn suit lining to prevent further chafing. She drifted in and out of consciousness during the journey, her head lolling against the improvised frame, murmuring in her own language, fluid syllables that sounded like water over stones, like wind through canyons, like music from a culture thousands of years older than his own, evoking images of vast arboreal cities and symbiotic ecosystems. The way station had been human once, back when this world held promise instead of poison, a beacon for colonists dreaming of new frontiers. Expedition markers still clung to the walls, faded but readable under his flashlight. Meridian Survey Station Alpha 7, established 2247, abandoned 2251. For years of hope before reality set in hard. Soil too toxic, atmosphere too thin, costs astronomical. For years before they realized this planet would never be worth the effort of terraforming. Then the war came, and the question of worth became moot under orbital bombardment that turned ambition to rubble. Cyrus set up his portable shelter within the most protected room, a corner space where two walls met at right angles, and the ceiling remained mostly intact, reinforced with debris to block wind. He laid Lisa on his sleeping mat, a thin foam pad that smelled of sweat and dust, and began treating her wounds with what little medical supplies he had left. Antiseptic gel designed for human biology, which might irritate her alien epidermis. Synthetic skin patches that probably wouldn't bond properly to Valkyrie tissue, lacking the necessary enzymes. Painkillers that could be outright poison to her metabolism, interacting badly with her photosynthetic blood analogs. He did his best, cleaning wounds with sterilized water, applying gel sparingly, wrapping with bandages torn from his spare uniform. It would have to be enough. Hope was a luxury, action a necessity. She woke as he was wrapping her wrists, her golden eyes focusing slowly on his face in the dim chemical lamplight, a blue glow from a glow stick cracked for illumination. "You're wasting supplies," she said, her voice stronger now but still brittle at the edges, like glass on the verge of shattering. "On someone who betrayed their own kind." "You save civilians," he countered, tying off the bandage with precise knots. "That's not betrayal. That's the opposite of betrayal. That's remembering their people, not statistics." "Tell that to my former commander," she replied wryly. "Tell that to the council of hierarchs who signed my execution order, debating it in their crystalline halls while soldiers died." Cyrus finished the bandage carefully and sat back on his heels, studying her in the flickering light. Despite everything, the exhaustion etched in faint lines around her eyes, the injuries that would fill a lesser being, the death sentence hanging like the sign she'd worn, there was something unbroken the way she held herself, defiant even when her body was failing her. Her posture, even reclined, spoke of a spine forged in adversity. "My unit thought I was a coward," he said quietly, his voice dropping to a confessional timbre. "Staying behind for a suicide mission instead of evacuating with everyone else. They thought I couldn't face the retreat, couldn't handle watching us lose territory we bled for inch by bloody inch." He paused, staring at his hands, calloused and stained with engine grease from repairs. Some of them were probably right about that. Cowardice or principle, lines blur after enough fire. "Were you a coward?" she asked directly. No judgment, just curiosity. "I don't know," he admitted. "I know I couldn't watch any more children die. For territory, neither side would keep for more than a month. I know I was tired of counting bodies instead of people, of filing reports that reduce lives to casualty figures. So when they needed a volunteer for a one-way demolition run, to collapse the fire base and deny it to the enemy, I raised my hand without hesitation. Bought time for the evac, or so they said." Lisa reached out with her newly freed hand, her long fingers barely brushing his arm, the touch light as a feather yet electric. The gesture was tentative, testing the boundaries of trust between former enemies, a bridge across a chasm of propaganda and bloodshed. "We're a fine pair, aren't we? Traitors and cowards left behind by everyone who mattered, scraps in the galaxy's dustbin." "Maybe," he said, not pulling away. "Or maybe we're the only ones who still remember what we were fighting for in the first place. Not land, not resources, survival with some shred of decency." Outside, the wind picked up significantly, carrying with the familiar whistle that signaled an approaching storm, a howl building to a scream. Cyrus moved to seal the shelter entrance with salvaged plastic sheeting, taping it down with adhesive strips, but Lisa's voice stopped in mid-movement, sharp despite her weakness. "Cyrus, why is there a tree still alive out there? In all this death and poison, how is that even possible? I've seen worlds scorched clean, but this..." He'd been wondering the same thing since the moment he found her, the question gnawing at the back of his mind like an unsolved equation. In a world where biological weapons had poisoned the soil down to bedrock, turning it to sterile dust, and orbital bombardments had burned the atmosphere, stripping ozone and seeding radiation, that tree should have been impossible, a complete violation of every ecological principle he knew from basic training briefings. I don't know, he admitted honestly. Securing the last tape. Maybe it was protected somehow, a fluke of geography or forgotten tech. Maybe it's the last of its kind, holding on out of pure spite against extinction. Like us, she said softly, a smile ghosting her lips. Yeah, exactly like us. He gave her more water, rationed carefully from his dwindling supply. 2 liters left, enough for a week if conserved, and watched as she drank with the desperation of someone who forgot what it felt like to hope for tomorrow, her throat working convulsively. When she finished, she met his eyes with an intensity that made him look away first, heat rising in his cheeks. You asked me what I did, what betrayal looks like to my people. She paused, gathering strength, her bioluminescence flickering faintly. Now, I'll ask you something. What did you see in this war that made you volunteer die alone? Cyrus was silent for a long time, listening to the storm build outside, feeling the way station shudder under gusts that carried ash like buckshot, the weight of memories he'd tried to bury beneath ash and distance, and the mechanical routine of survival pressed down, heavy as the exoframe. I saw children, he said finally, his voice barely above the wind. Valkyrie children, no more than 5 or 6 years old by human standards, hiding in the ruins of their colony on Tharsis II. My unit had orders to clear all hostiles from the sector. Command didn't distinguish between soldiers and civilians. Green skin was green skin. Threat was threat. I was a designated marksman, positioned to provide overwatch from elevation. Scope dialed to 10x. He closed his eyes against the memory. The crosshairs still burned into his retinas. And when my commander ordered the strike on their position, a bunker barely holding, a grenade launcher team prepped. I hesitated. For exactly 3 seconds, I hesitated, finger off the trigger. And in those 3 seconds, another soldier carried out the order without question. Explosion. Dust. Then silence. He opened his eyes, staring at the wall. 12 of them. 12 children who just wanted their parents to come back, clutching toys woven from vine fiber. And I couldn't do anything but watch through my scope and count the bodies afterward, noting positions for the after-action report. But you tried, Lisa said softly. That matters more than you know. Hesitation is the seed of change. Does it? He challenged, bitterness creeping in. They still died. And when I reported what happened, tried to file a formal war crimes complaint through proper channels, encrypted burst of high command, I was told to shut up and follow orders. That hesitation was noted in my permanent record. A black mark, a sign of operational weakness. So when they needed someone expendable for the demolition mission, they knew exactly who to ask. Volunteer, they called it. Lisa was quiet for a moment, her thumb tracing small circles on his forearm, a gesture that seemed unconscious, instinctive, soothing in its rhythm. I was there, she said softly, her voice a thread in the storm. What? He turned to her, confusion knitting his brow. Tharsis, II, the Valkyrie colony you mentioned. I was part of the evacuation effort before your forces arrived in overwhelming numbers, drop ships blotting the sky. She met his eyes directly, golden depths reflecting the lamplight. I helped load those exact children onto transports. Small ones, scared, their bioluminescence dim from fear. I promised their parents they'd be safe in the deep shelters, bunkers carved into the red rock. And then the bombardment started early, your orbitals jumping the gun, and we had to leave them behind because there wasn't enough space on the last shuttle, wasn't enough time, wasn't enough anything. I've carried their faces with me every single day since, glowing in my dreams. The storm hit then with full force, ash and wind battering the way station walls like artillery, but neither of them noticed the sound, lost in the revelation. They sat in the lamplight, 2 soldiers from opposite sides of a brutal war, discovering they'd been haunted by the same ghosts for years, bound by invisible threads of guilt and loss. No one believed they would survive the night. Her injuries too severe, wrists raw to the bone, his supplies too limited, medkits depleted, the storm too violent, winds reaching 150 kilometers per hour. But the silence that followed their confession spread across the shelter like a storm of its own, carried with the weight of shared guilt and the tentative, fragile possibility of shared redemption, a bomb against the rage outside. The storm lasted through the night with relentless fury, howling like the war's dying screams. Cyrus kept watch, rifle across his lap, while Lisa slept fitfully, her breathing gradually steadying as her body began the slow process of recovery, Valkyrie physiology kicking in with regenerative bursts. He'd given her his remaining protein rations, dense bars of synthesized nutrients, ignoring her weak protest that he needed them more. Survival is shared now, he'd said simply. When dawn came, or what passed for dawn in the sunless place, a gradual brightening from inky black to oppressive gray, light filtering through ash clouds. Lisa was awake and sitting up, examining her bandages with clinical detachment, unwrapping one to peer at the healing flesh. "You have basic medical training," she observed, probing the edge of a wound where new tissue knit. "Combat medic certification," he replied, checking his scanner for storm aftermath. "Level 3. Never thought I'd be using it on a Valkyrie. Thought it'd be patching my own squad. Never thought I'd be receiving it from a human," she countered, rewrapping the bandage with efficient movements. "Life is full of surprises, mostly terrible ones. But this is unexpected." Her own healing biology was already responding to treatment in ways that seemed almost magical to human eyes. Cellular structures reorganizing under the skin, capillaries reconnecting in branching patterns, the dark welts fading to pale green. "Your people heal faster than we do," he noted, handing her a nutrient paste. "One of our few evolutionary advantages," she said, accepting it gratefully. "Evolve on a world with harsh seasons, quick recovery or extinction, though it means we suffer longer when we're dying slowly. Pain lingers. Evolution is cruel that way," he agreed, a wry smile tugging his lips. Cyrus broke out the last of his coffee rations, a luxury he'd been saving for an occasion that would never come now. A victory toast or a final bitter sip before surrender. He heated water over a chemical burner, the blue flame hissing in the quiet, and made 2 cups in cracked mugs scavenged from the station. Handing one to Lisa, steam rising like ghosts. She sniffed it cautiously, nostrils flaring. "What is this?" "Smells burnt." "Coffee. Human stimulant. Bitter, caffeinated. Technically probably poison to your biology. Interacts with chlorophyll analogs, maybe, but at this point, what's honestly the worst that could happen? Hallucinations? We got those already." She laughed. A real laugh this time. Surprise and genuine, echoing in a confined space like a rare bird call. Took a careful sip. Her face did something complicated. Wrinkled nose, widened eyes, then a nod. "It's terrible. I'll have another cup immediately." They sat drinking their terrible coffee, watching the ash settle outside through a cracked viewport, particles dancing in the weak light. In the gray illumination, Cyrus could see more details. The subtle ridges along her cheekbones like faint bark patterns, the way her hair caught light despite the gloom, strands shimmering with internal reflectance, the elegant tape of her ears, pointed slightly. "Tell me about the tree," he said eventually, breaking the companionable silence. "The real reason it's still alive. What makes you think I know?" "Because you're a soldier," she replied, setting her mug down. "Soldiers notice terrain, anomalies, tactical advantages. That tree is all 3. I felt it when I was bound, a pulse like a heartbeat. And the radiation patterns are wrong around that location. Everything else reads hot. Fallout, biological weapon residue, cesium-137 off the charts. But that area? Clean, like something's actively protecting it, scrubbing the air, filtering the soil." He nodded slowly, recalling his scanner readings. "I found equipment nearby on approach. Valkyrie equipment, but old, pre-war, possibly pre-colonial. Consoles with dust-caked interfaces, data crystals fractured but intact. Recognition dawned in her eyes, golden pupils dilating. The Sanctuary Project. You know it. Heard whispers in intel briefings. Dismissed as myth. Every Valkyrie child learns about it as history, a great failure, or so the hierarchs spin it. 300 years ago, our people tried to create a living network. Trees genetically engineered to terraform hostile worlds, roots that could bind toxins, leave that photosynthesized pollutants into oxygen, trunks that stored data in lignin matrices. The project was abandoned when the trees began to develop consciousness. They started making decisions, selecting which species to support, prioritizing ecosystems over colonial expansion. Our scientists were terrified. They'd created life that could judge them, evolve beyond control. So they burned the prototypes, scattered remaining seeds across dead worlds as a warning. Except this one took root. And if that's really a sanctuary seed, something is still fighting to live here, remembering. They gathered supplies and prepared to leave the way station, packing what little remained. A medkit down to basics, rations for 5 days, tools, the vibroblade. The storm had passed, leaving a fresh layer of ash but clearer air, visibility up to 500 meters. Whatever happens, thank you for cutting me down, Lisa said as he helped her stand, her legs steady now. For treating me like a person, not an enemy. Same to you for reminding me why I'm still here, he replied, shouldering the pack. Purpose beyond survival. Behind them, as they stepped out, tiny green shoots pushed through cracks in station floor, fragile but insistent. Life following their wake in subtle defiance. And in the distance, a shimmering around the tree as if reality been around living green. A mirage of hope. They reached the tree at midday, the sun a diffused glow behind clouds, casting no shadows. The shimmering was pronounced now, a heat-like distortion in the air, wavering like a force field. Patterns of light moved beneath the bark, bioluminescent veins pulsing in rhythmic waves, blues and greens shifting like neural pathways firing. Lisa approached first, hands trembling slightly, reverence in her posture. The moment she touched the bark, fingers playing against rough texture, everything changed. Light exploded through the tree, branching out in fractal patterns, leaves beginning to glow with inner fire, illuminating the valley in emerald radiance. Lisa gasped, her body going rigid, eyes rolling back to show only glowing whites. Lisa! Cyrus moved to pull her away, fear spiking, trap, overload, some ancient defense. No! She held up her hand, voice distant, echoing. It's speaking in feelings, images, memories, not words, emotions vast and ancient. The light grew brighter, enveloping them both in a warm aura that chased away the chill. Cyrus watched as the tree came alive in earnest, technology and nature merged in symbiotic harmony. It remembers everything. The war's bombardments, kinetic rods falling like judgment. It felt this world die, ecosystems collapsing in cascades. And it held on because someone asked it to, a plea encoded in its genes. Who? He asked, voice hushed. She turned, eyes glowing with borrowed light, tears tracking clean paths down her cheeks. A scientist, Dr. Theraneres. Valkyrie, but she worked with humans in the pre-war exchange programs. She planted this before the war started, foresaw the conflict in trade disputes and resource grabs. She made a choice to seed hope. The light pulsed, and Cyrus felt it then. Emotions aged 3 centuries washing over him. Sorrow for lost worlds, joy and potential, a fierce protectiveness. She asked it to remember what was worth saving. Compassion, the ability to choose mercy over protocol, the belief that life persists if someone's brave enough to nurture it. That's why it didn't let you die, he realized aloud. It sensed your act, the civilians. It sustained you, filtered toxins, provided trace nutrients through the ropes somehow. Yes, Lisa confirmed, voice layered with the tree's resonance. The same thing that scientists planted, the willingness to sacrifice everything for mercy. It chose you, too, when you cut me down. The light spread into ground, tendrils of energy burrowing like roots. Where it touched, things changed. Green shoots erupting through ash, soil darkening to fertile brown, air sweetening with ozone and faint floral scents. It's healing the planet, she explained silently in his mind. The connection brief, waiting for the war to end, waiting for mercy to matter again. She broke contact, staggering into his arms, the glow fading from her eyes but lingering in her skin. The tree gave me knowledge, purpose, schematics, growth patterns, symbiotic requirements. It needs both of us, human and Valkyrie, together. Healing only works when both sides choose it, balance and duality. I don't know xenobotany, he said, steadying her. Neither do I, fully. But we can learn. We have a tree that heals worlds. We have terrible coffee. And we have each other. That's insane. Completely. So are you in? He looked at her, green skin glowing softly, golden eyes bright with purpose, and understood he'd already chosen. The decision made in the moment he holstered his weapon. I'm in. They laughed, the sound light and freeing, echoing under the canopy. The tree responded with a pulse of light. Joy that after 3 centuries, it was no longer alone, its vigil rewarded. They built camp in the research station ruins adjacent to the tree, old Valkyrie prefabs, half buried but salvageable, with intact solar panels that hummed back to life under the tree's influence. Lisa recovered quickly now, the tree accelerating her healing with targeted pulses. Within weeks, she was teaching him which plants were edible, emerging ferns with nutty roots, vines bearing protein-rich pods, showing him ancient documents etched on durable crystal slates, detailing the sanctuary protocols. He shared survival techniques, water purification from condensation traps, fortification against storms, human tech hacks to interface with Valkyrie systems. The tree grew in influence daily, its reach extending in visible rings, ash giving way to moss, then grasses, then saplings sprouting in defiance. They documented the miracle meticulously. Scans, samples, journals in dual languages. Do you miss them? Lisa asked one evening, as they sat by a fire bioluminescent would that burn clean. Your people? The structure, the camaraderie? I miss who we were before the war, Cyrus replied, poking the flames. The explorers, the builders, but the people who left me, the military that punished compassion for weakness? No, I thought betraying my kind would haunt me, but like you, I feel free. Free to what? Free to be myself for the first time, she finished, taking his hand. In the distance, an animal call. The first in months, a tentative chirp from a revived insect or small mammal. Life returning. Cyrus had left a message before setting the charges at Firebase Aaron. Carve into a bulkhead. Forgive us. We forgot how to be human. Lisa, upon seeing it in his recounted memory, borrowed the vibroblade one night. Next morning, he found her carving into the tree's base, careful not to harm. What did you write? Forgive us. We forgot we were alive. Universal, encompassing both species. They stood together reading the words, bark sealing around them protectively. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing differently now. How long do we have? He asked, surveying the expanding green. 6 months until critical mass. Maybe. The tree's network needs time to stabilize atmosphere, purge deep contaminants. And if it continues, then maybe we write a different ending for this world. She smiled radiant. Then let's get to work. As they walked back to camp, something shifted fundamentally. Ash settled differently, lighter. Winds cleared paths. Hope took root, literal and metaphorical. The signal came on day 173 of their partnership. Cyrus's long-range beacon, jury-rigged to the tree's energy, screamed into the void unexpectedly. Lisa came running from the labs. Is it a probe? Scout drone. Someone knows something's happening here, he said, monitoring the console. Biosignatures spiking planet-wide. We should respond. Both peoples need to know healing is possible. They'll want to weaponize it, she warned. Turn sanctuary into a bioweapon. Control life itself. Probably, but we're the guardians now. That counts for leverage. They crafted a message carefully. 2 survivors, human and Valkyrie, requesting peaceful contact. Significant discovery. Planetary regeneration. Coordinates attached. Waiting at tree. Signed with their ranks and names. Response came fast, within hours. Faster than light comms from nearby systems. 2 ships inbound, 1 from each side. Truce protocols engaged. They waited at the tree, hands linked in solidarity, as shuttles landed in the newly verdant clearing, grass cushioning the struts. Doors opened. People emerged cautiously. Humans led by a captain in crisp uniform, face weathered. Valkyrie by a diplomat in flowing robes, antennae-like sensory fronds quivering. We received your transmission, the captain said, voice transmitted via suit speaker. Came to understand how biosignatures emerged on a dead world. Meridian was written off. The diplomat added, Project Sanctuary was classified destroyed. Myths. Cyrus and Lisa stepped forward, unarmed but resolute. It emerged because someone chose mercy over survival, Cyrus explained. Because someone saved a life instead of taking it. Because a tree remembered that we're neighbors in a universe too large for hatred, Lisa continued. Dr. Theraneres planted this 300 years ago, asking it to wait for us to be ready. The captain's expression cracked, recognition dawning. Lieutenant Vane, you were declared Kiet Aaron. I survived, he said simply. Chose to. The diplomat moved closer, Franz stilling. Lieutenant Lisa, executed for treason, saving humans at Kepler 7. This soldier gave me water, she replied. That's all that matters now. Silence fell, heavy but breaking. Then the tree pulsed light, welcoming, projecting images into their minds, shared memories of Tharsis too, the children, the choices, showing them what Cyrus and Lisa had learned, that mercy was possible, that healing could happen, that compassion was strength, not weakness. No one laughed at their choices. They understood, viscerally, peace written in green leaves, tangible and growing. Years became legend, spread via returning ships. More vessels came, scientists, diplomats, the curious. The tree spreading exponentially, forests encroaching on ruins, purifying rivers that flowed again. The human and Valkyrie who chose each other became symbols, their story retold in academies. They documented everything, not just biology, philosophy of coexistence, nurture over exploitation, former enemies as allies in stewardship, Project Sanctuary reborn as a joint initiative, seeds distributed to other scarred worlds under strict pacts. They declined offers of evacuation, rank, wealth, everything except one request, to stay as guardians, granted unanimously. Decades passed in a blur of growth. The garden became a forest, vast and thriving. Two people grew old, different species but same purpose. Hands wrinkled, hair silvered his, or deepened to crimson hers. Students learned at their feet. Scientists studied the network. Pilgrims came to remember, leaving offerings of seeds from homeworlds. Do you have regrets? Lisa asked when age slowed them, sitting under the great tree's shade. Cyrus looked at her, green skin weathered but luminous, and smiled. Only one. That I didn't find you sooner. Then we'll build faster next time, she teased. Make up for lost time. Deal. Same terms always. Terrible coffee and impossible hope. Foundations of a new civilization. They laughed, the sound mingling with leaves. The tree stands eternal on Sanctuary Prime now. Roots in soil that chose forgive, branches sheltering a dream realized. Two gravestones side by side, carved from living wood. Here lies a gardener who planted peace in a field of war. And beside, here lies another who watered it with mercy. Every spring, visitors come, families, scholars. They bring children, wide-eyed, tell the story in full. Remember, wars end not with weapons, but with individual choices to see enemies as people, to extend a hand across divides. The soldier and the marked one, human and Valkyrie, two who found each other beneath an impossible tree and decided mercy mattered more than victory, because survival without mercy is death in slow motion. And death is never final. When someone remembers life is sacred, interconnected. Sometimes a single act of compassion shifts stars, not through force, but through simple belief that kindness matters, that mercy is the ultimate strength, that the only true betrayal is refusing to see humanity or Valkyrie in those we are taught to hate. The tree remembers. The garden remembers, teaching each generation. We're all just people trying to survive the universe's indifference, and we do it better together than apart, roots entwined, branches reaching for the same light.